22nd meeting of the 12th Undergraduate Senate to order. I'm going to begin by calling the roll. Senator Pentar. Here. Senator Lipstein. Here. Senator Rogers.
Here.
Senator Zitzman.
Here.
Senator Pardo. Senator Pugh.
Here.
Senator Kenna. Senator Conover.
Here by proxy.
Senator Grant. Senator Adeli. Senator Smith. Here. Senator Spivak. Senator Zenke.
Here by proxy.
Okay, sweet. 1 second. Okay, so that is 8 out of 14 present and voting, so we're gonna have quorum. All right. So we're gonna move on to the adoption of the agenda. This is the agenda. Is there any discussion on it? Okay, agenda is going to be adopted without objection. We're going to move on to the adoption of the minutes of the 21st meeting. Oh my god. That was like conception. Okay. These are the minutes of the 21st meeting. Is there any discussion on them? I sent them out. Should I run over them? Okay, they're going to be adopted without objection. Now we're going to move on to a period of public comment. A member of the public wish to speak at this time. Okay, we're going to move on to reports from officers, and Josh Dare for President Thompson is up first.
Do I say it?
You can do whatever you
Okay.
want.
This is from President Dumpson. She reads, due to persistent pressure from her cabinet since the last board meeting, the university took a major first step into releasing campus climate information to students for the first time in recent years.
Sweet. Any questions for President Dumpson's proxy? Okay, awesome. Secretary Schneider's gonna go next.
Hello, everyone. I don't have any personal update. Well, I do have a personal update, but not on my job per se. So I told you last time that I was going to the AU leadership retreat, which was on last Friday, at WCO. It was all day, and it was really awesome. So we had a panel with leaders in higher education, moderated by President Burwell, and we talked about everything from college affordability, free speech on campus, and how we kind of fit into the larger higher education landscape. And then we talked in breakout sessions about where we see AU now and where we see AU in 5 years. And then in the afternoon, we did another large breakout session that lasted several hours. I was on the community engagement breakout session, and we talked a lot about how AU engages with the greater DC community, with the Northwest DC community, with the Tenleytown, Spring Valley community, and how we can improve what we want to keep the same, how we can just better engage students with our neighbors and with fellow DC residents. And as usual, I think student representatives played a large part, and there were only 9 students there, between undergrad, student government, student trustee, and the Graduate Leadership Council and Student Bar Association. And our presence was appreciated greatly by the faculty that were like the main constituencies of the retreat. And we're going to follow up. We're going to get follow-ups from the leadership committee that organized the retreat and how AU plans to use some of the things that we talked about, and as they move forward to develop the next campus plan. Any questions?
Questions for Chris? All right, you're good. Okay, we're gonna move on to new business and the suspension of Senator Gale. So these were suspension petitions work like confirmations, there's 4 minutes to speak, 4 minutes of questioning, then there's discussion. And they do go through CRP. So Audra was favorably recommended to be reinstated by CRP. Speak, however you'd like.
Okay, coming down here. Okay. Okay. Hi, Hi, everybody. Thank you, Maddie, for making time for me and the agenda, and to the Senate for giving me your time, especially at the end of a busy semester. I'm up here to appeal my suspension from Senate based on my absences. 2 of my full Senate absences were for theater rehearsal for the school play, which would have been excused had I sent in a request beforehand, but I didn't really know that that was something that qualified. I was unclear on what qualified was as an excused absence before Senator Smith let me know, so I appreciate doing that for me. This semester, like many of yours, has been a busy one. Acknowledging that I'm not the only person who has a heavy course load and a busy college schedule, I apologize for my lacking performance in Senate and completing my duties this past semester. The reason I'm appealing for my suspension is because I've had a very rewarding experience this past year in Senate. I'd like to be able to finish out my term strong with you guys. I'm not running for re-election next year, so I'd really just like to finish out strong on the commitments that I have made. I understand any frustration in my absences, and I pledge my dedication for the rest of my term to finishing my duties as the chair of CSA and to get the committee to meet and expedite the review of proposed bills through the committee. I'll make myself available as much as possible outside of my office hours as well to finish what I started as Senator at Large. I hope that you can take into consideration my appeal and trust that I will finish out a strong term.
Any questions for Senator Gale? Okay, seeing none, would you leave the room? We're gonna have discussion.
Thank you.
Of course. Senator Lixie.
Yep, so I personally would recommend voting to repeal her reinstating her, because I think while there's only 1 week left and maybe like her actions as a senator will be limited, I think that Bobby presented a really incredible bill, and it would be a shame if we couldn't discuss it. And so I would vote for her so that the committee could meet and look at his bill and we can discuss it in our last Senate meeting. A second.
Senator Liston?
Yeah, I concur with what Senator Lickstein said insofar as she might as well be brought back into the Senate. However, just as a cursory note, I do intend to try to recall the bill from committee so we can talk about it today. But if that doesn't work, it'd be good to have it in the committee as well.
Any other discussion?
I would just like to further say that I think that she's done a lot of good work for Senate and that she deserves to finish strong. And so I think we should give her that chance and opportunity.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna vote. So it might be a little confusing. We're voting to repeal her suspension. So if you say yes, it's like, yes, she can come back. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah. Okay. All those in favor of reversing her suspension and making her like a full voting member of the Senate, say yay.
Yay.
All opposed, nay. Okay. So the opinion of the chair, the yeas have it. She's gonna be reinstated as a senator. Okay. You can speak and vote now. Thank you.
Welcome.
I really appreciate it. I'm very happy. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move back on, or we're gonna move next to election of a member of the Special Committee of Finance. Senator Sheehan resigned, and we need to fill her seat. So the floor is now open to nominations for a member of the Special Committee on Finance. Senator Rogers.
I nominate Senator Pintar.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Any other nominations for a member of the Special Committee on Finance? Okay, seeing, yeah.
Oh, wait, do we need to fill it with more people?
There's one position open, but if you'd like to nominate people.
Never mind, sorry.
Point of inquiry.
Yeah.
This is just for the remainder of the 12th Senate, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other nominations for a member of Special Committee on Finance? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on to candidate speeches. Feel free to come down and speak.
Okay.
Hi guys, I'm Sophia. Thank you for nominating me. I really look forward to finishing out the Twelfth Undergraduate strong, and I hope that we can make some progress and make sure that we prepare for the 13th Undergraduate Senate as well. Thank you.
Any questions for Senator Pintar? Okay, awesome. If you would leave.
Oh.
Okay, any discussion on the candidate?
Yeah. As like chair of the finance committee, I think Sophia would be an awesome addition, and there isn't that much happening in the committee until the end, so not that much pressure for the decision to be made.
Senator Dale?
Yeah, as a member of the committee, I think this is like a good opportunity for Senator Pintar to get her feet wet if she wanted to run for this, well, be appointed for this again as she is running for re-election. So I think it'd be great, even though we're not meeting, it would just have like a nice basis for her to continue on this position. So.
Any other discussion?
I move to vote by unanimous consent.
Okay, so it'd be by secret ballot. She can vote. We're gonna vote.
You can write her name or yes or no or abstain.
Those are just a paper.
You know, I'm just really good at using
Are
systems.
these all from me?
Did everybody get one? Is this it?
Oh yeah, everyone great catch.
Yeah,
Trust me every day.
Don't know who I'll vote for.
There you go.
Do you wanna?
Sorry, I
Got you. Don't worry.
You're fired.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can you remove a proxy in the middle of a meeting?
I'm not gonna answer this question right now.
What was the question? Can you remove a proxy, like if they're being disruptive or something?
Oh my goodness.
I don't see why not.
There you go. Thank you.
Why, are you trying to be removed?
No, I'm trying to remove me.
What is Dominic doing to you?
I'm just asking, jeez.
I have two of the gold ones.
Don't forget how you got to where you are today. It was by Uber, if anyone was.
So my mom cleaned out.
It was by an Uber pool, actually.
Oh, excuse me.
This one is actually
Okay,
really fun.
unanimous
I recommend.
voting for the confirmation of the candidate. So welcome to Special Committee on Finance. Okay, awesome. We're gonna move on to the confirmation of a member for JSAP. This is Taylor's nominee. If you'd like to come down and speak, feel free.
Should I just give the same?
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
That's great.
CRP did favorably recommend him for confirmation.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin, I want to say I'm a little under the weather. So this is, for those in CRP, this is word for word my speech from last time.
Amazing.
So, you know, if my voice is a little rough,
Wonderful.
excuse me. Anyways, my name is Iman Vahidi, and I'm a first-year student in the School of Public Affairs. I applied for this position because I care about making policy and want the opportunity to improve the system wherever possible. When I saw the application posted online, I applied almost immediately because I saw it as both a great way to dip my toes into the waters of student government and to improve elections policy while getting 4 years to carry out that goal. In terms of changes I want to see made to the policy book, I'm honestly not completely sure yet because I've yet to see elections policy in practice. I think the fact that this appointment is happening in an election cycle is great because it gives me the opportunity to see elections policy in real time and guide how I want to make that policy better in future elections. Because I'm only a freshman, I'll not only have more than enough time to make improvements, but I will actually get to see my own changes in action and improve upon these as well. As for experience, I've done a bit in both the elections and policy fields. On the election side, I was a poll worker in Los Angeles during the presidential election, so I attended county training sessions on local elections policy, processed and counted ballots, and made sure nothing went amiss in our precinct. On the policy side, I was an intern for Los Angeles City Council during spring and summer of 2016, where I helped write and implement policy that affected people both in our district and citywide. I thus hope that this position on JSEP would be a great way to combine my experience in both fields. In terms of things to be concerned about, I know two of the big things are commitment to this position over time and impartiality. My workload / other commitments are relatively light. I will be more than free during the election cycle. As I understand it, the bulk of JSEP work throughout the year is done over email, which is even easier when it comes to having the time to participate. In terms of campaigning / running for office, it is important to know that I did file to run for president of the Entertennial Hall Council and later for RHA delegate for the same hall. What is equally important to know is that I did zero campaigning for either position and have no intention of filing to run for anything again. As I really quickly discovered, I just don't like campaigning for myself. I'm probably gonna end up as a career bureaucrat. I wanna make policy and affect change, but I don't wanna deal with the electoral politics of securing positions to do that change. As such, I think it's really easy for me to promise that I'm not gonna resign early to run for anything and that I can remain impartial in election cycles. I think that covers everything. Happy to take questions.
Any questions for me? Senator Zitzman?
Are you currently, or do you intend to help any other person who's running for any student government position?
No and no. I know the position very much. Impartiality is of the utmost importance, and I have stuck with that and will keep sticking with it.
Any other questions for the nominee? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move to a period of discussion. If you keep the room, that'd be awesome. Senator, what are you?
Ben.
Are you yourself?
I'll be me.
Okay. Secretary Schneider.
I don't think I've ever seen somebody so excited about elections policy ever in my entire time at American University. So I think that that's incredibly important. Seems extremely qualified, just objectively in terms of elections, which is really odd because again, I've never seen that before. And I think he would be a great addition to AUSG.
Senator Lindsay.
Yeah, in CRP, he mentioned that this is a position he would like to hold as of now until graduation. And as a freshman, that's amazing. I think it's so refreshing to see someone running for this position because they're genuinely interested in what the position does and the policy work of it, and wanting to be committed to it for years is incredible and would be such an amazing asset. And I really am excited.
Senator Ryan.
Yeah, I'll just add that I was, very impressed and essentially blown away by the nominee. And I'll also just say that I'm a little jealous that the RHA couldn't get him, even though he tried twice to join. But I think he'll be a good addition to student government, and specifically the Joint Committee on Elections Policy.
Senator Hugh.
Yeah, and in CRP, I also asked the question if he had a different opinion on like a policy or initiative that was different from the majority, and he gave a really well response about sticking with what he believes in and not falling within the majority. So I think I told CRP earlier, I think it's very good for each individual of the Joint Committee to be able to stand by what they believe in and how they interpret something. And so I also thought that he would be a very good addition to the committee.
Senator Dan.
He also has like real time and real world experience like outside of college and like elections, which I think is like so important in the professionalism aspect of this. Like we're all students, so like I feel like it's hard to separate that, like being a student and like being the same age as people who you're trying to like tell what to do. But he has that professional background that I think will make him like be able to do that with ease. So I think that's impressive.
Any other discussion on the nominee? Okay, awesome. Seeing none, we're going to move to vote. All those in favor of confirming him to be a member of JSEF, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, in the opinion of the chair, the yeas have it to be confirmed. Yay. I'm going to swear you in. Alright, so, get excited. Okay.
What do I do?
Raise your right hand. You're gonna repeat after me.
Okay.
I state your name, solemnly swear
I, Iman Bahidi, do solemnly swear
that I will diligently and faithfully
that I will diligently and faithfully
execute the duties and responsibilities
execute the duties and responsibilities
of the office of
a member of the committee for Joint Committee for Elections Policy.
that I will abide by the governing doctrines
That I will abide by the governing documents
of the student government,
of the student government.
and that I will work to my fullest abilities
That I will work to my fullest abilities
to promote the interests and welfare
to promote the interests and welfare
of the students of American University.
of the students of American University. Thank you.
Madam Speaker,
Yes,
is JSEF now full?
JSEF is now full.
Woo!
There are about 4 members and 1 chair. Very excited.
Wait, we have 5 people on JSEF right now?
Yeah.
That's absurd. That's great.
Okay, so new business is done. We're gonna move on to old business. I dropped this bill. We were gonna consider Adele's bill, but I struck it because she wanted to be here, which is totally fair. Senator Zitzman.
I move to recall Bill 16-17-024 from the CSA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, this motion is debatable. So is there any debate on recalling this from committee? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna recall from committee. So
We should vote
now,
on that.
sorry,
We should vote on what we're calling it.
Yes.
you're right. All those in favor of recalling this from committee, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. All right, the opinion of the chair, the ayes have, we're gonna call it from committee. Thank you, Chris.
Senator Khan, over to you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so now we're in a period of discussion. Would the sponsor like to speak about the bill?
Yes, please. So I'll just remind you all, if you were here, what I said when I introduced this about a month ago. That is that the bill is simple in that what it identifies as accessibility problems on campus are very simple things to fix for the most part. And it's straightforward in the way it goes about for student government to advocate for those solutions through the Office of the President, meeting with officials from the university. And it's because of that design that I think that it is better suited for actually achieving a result than us simply passing a resolution or something to that effect, simply stating that we would like accessibility on campus to improve. Because I feel like in that case, what would happen is that the university would see that the student government has problems with campus accessibility, and they would say, yes, we know about these things, and then just kind of put it at the bottom of their pile. But in this case, we identify things that, in my experience, meeting with people in the creation of this bill, there are a few things listed here that aren't really on the radar for a lot of people. So that identification process and the follow-up that is also built into the structure of this bill, I think would be useful.
Awesome. Any questions for the sponsor? Okay, we're going to move into a period of discussion. Is there any discussion on this bill?
All right. I move to amend first in the second enactment clause, item F, just strike subway and the comma that comes after subway.
Second.
This is your amendment?
Yes.
Okay, there was a second.
Yep.
Is there any discussion on this amendment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to voting on the amendment. All those in favor of adopting this amendment, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, opinion of the chair, the yeas have it. Amendment is adopted. Any other discussion? Senator Zipman?
Okay, one more amendment. At the end of the fourth enactment clause, which discusses the reports, that's the last one, I would just like to add the following sentence. These reports shall continue until the undergraduate senate determines that presidential advocacy pursuant to this legislation will achieve no further improvement. Period.
Second.
This is your amendment.
Yes.
So I heard a second. Is there any discussion on this amendment?
He should be capitalized. President.
Should not be.
Should not be.
Okay, I'm gonna take that as clerical. Is that okay with you? Cool.
Given that you made the decision to capitalize it.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, seeing that, we're gonna vote on adopting this amendment. All those in favor of adopting this amendment, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Any of the chairs, the yeas have it. The amendment is adopted. Any other discussion on the bill? Senator Pugh,
Will you direct the question to the sponsor?
of course.
What do you mean by regular reporting? Do you think it should be defined more, or do you keep it vague for a specific reason?
Okay. So first of all, I got that the skeleton of the language for this bill, including that presidential report bit from, I believe, Bill 1617-015. I might be wrong on the numbers, but that is the one that deals with opioid overdose medication. I believe Senator Wolf wrote that.
Yep.
And that bill does not specify the interval of the reports, but it does mandate a first report. I didn't want to do that to the first report bit because I didn't know when this would pass, and then I don't know what else is going on with the president's office. But I might entertain if somebody has a proposal for an interval, but I didn't want to add one because it leaves it more flexible for the president to decide when she would like to report. And I believe if she or her successor does not adequately fulfill that obligation, the Senate can take up that issue at that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, so based on that, like even bringing up Senator Wolf's bill from last year, I don't like, from being here, I have not actually ever seen a report from the president about like updates on Senator Wolf's bill. So I feel like we need to clarify a little bit more what regularly reporting is. That way we can actually like hear the process that's being made from the president, just so that it doesn't get lost like the last one did.
Senator Rogers.
Yeah, I would agree with the point that regularly should probably be clarified because it's not clear. Is that once every year? Could be once every 2 years as long as it's regular. But I want to just correct the record because Senator Pugh said that there had never been a report from the president on Senator Wolf's bill. And in fact, there was earlier this semester. I forget, it was like the second meeting, I believe.
I believe it was the first meeting back, the 17th meeting. I could be incorrect though. It is in the minutes though. They were all adopted.
Yeah. So that did happen, but I do think regularly should be clarified.
Is that an amendment?
Nope.
Any other discussion on the bill? Oh, where are you?
Secretary.
Secretary Stein.
So I think something you should consider is tightening the first enactment clause, narrowing that to facilities management and ASAC and other relevant university administrators, because this is just like understanding how the advocacy process works. The president of AU is not going to get involved in this. The Office of Campus Life is too broad. So I think narrowing it to facilities management and ASAC, keeping in other relevant university administrators, allows for the president of the USG to be in compliance without having to like awkwardly ask a not relevant administrator to do something.
Okay, any other discussion?
So I move to amend the first enactment clause to strike the president of American University and the Office of Campus Life and their grammatically necessary commas from that clause.
Second.
Is this your amendment?
Probably.
It looks grammatically correct to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I heard a second. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to voting on the amendment. All those in favor of adopting this amendment, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, neither the chair or the yeas have it. The amendment's going to be adopted. This is the bill now. Any other discussion on the bill? Senator Pugh.
So I move to amend the final enactment clause to read, President of the student government shall report once before the end of the fall 2017 semester. And once a month thereafter. Yeah, thereafter. And then strike
Any month
right.
or per month?
What?
Any month or per? Is it? Okay.
Thereafter, strike regularly.
Is this your amendment?
Yes.
a second. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to vote. All those in favor of adopting this amendment say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, the opinion of the chair, the yeas have it. Amendment's going to be adopted, so that goes away. This is the bill language. Any other discussion on the bill? What are you?
Secretary.
Secretary Shiner.
Can you direct a question to this one? Can I ask a question to
Would
this
you take a question?
Yes.
Okay. Would the sponsor be interested in adding language to the effect that he would remain involved in the advocacy process? So it's not just like handing off to the president. So that like, because I think as an overall theme, I think Senate works more effectively both with the board and the university administration when they stay involved in their advocacy. So not to say that like, senators become disconnected, but I think putting it into their legislation, they will make it a point to meet with the president or at least engage the president in the first, like the first steps of the bill to get it kicked off would be helpful. I guess put a question mark at the end of that.
Would you like to respond?
Sure. So yeah, I would not mind staying involved in this process in general. I wouldn't want to write in the bill specifically that I stay involved because, well, passing it at this session because I'm running for re-election and I might lose my campaign. And also I'm trying to think about how we put into language that the Senate involves itself or senators involve themselves in this process. And I haven't thought of it yet, but I'm sure it can't be that hard. So if I think of it, I will bring it up, or if anybody else has it, they can bring it up.
Senator Pugh,
Would you direct a question to the secretary?
would you take a question?
Yes.
So based on your idea, would you entertain having the speaker of the next session designate maybe 2 or 3 senators to follow through with this as well,
Sure.
just in case?
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think that's I think that could be a good model, depending on how this works. Just kind of coming up with a way for Senate to remain involved in any capacity, I think is a huge step forward.
Senator Simpson,
Would you direct another question towards the secretary?
would you take a question?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I think the designated senators is an interesting idea. And we also might consider, we might also consider to make it a question using the newly established Special Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for that task.
Sure. I think designating the speaker to kind of, whoever the speaker may be, to identify either individual senators or a committee to liaise with the president would be a good way to amend that.
So I move to amend the bill to add another enactment clause before the final enactment clause to read, so be it further enacted that the Speaker of the 13th Undergraduate Senate or the 13th Undergraduate Senate designate up to 3 senators who shall work with the President of Student Government to continue the advocacy of this bill.
Just notice that this says be in further enacted. So I'm gonna take that as clerical. So is that me? Is this your amendment?
Yeah.
Cool. Is there a second? Is there any discussion on this amendment? Senator Rogers.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we're limiting it to the Speaker of the 13th Undergraduate Senate, especially if we want this to continue for multiple years. So I would recommend that we have it just be the Speaker of the Undergraduate Senate. And I move to strike 13th. No, just 13th.
Is this your amendment to the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Seeing none, we're gonna vote. All those in favor of adopting the green ink to become part of the yellow ink, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Okay. Okay, this is the amendment. Any other discussion on this amendment? Yes.
You have to, the 13th is in there.
Oh, you're so right. Okay.
Do it again.
Any discussion on this amendment, or on this amendment? Yeah.
I think this is clerical, but I would change bill to legislation to make it in line with the rest of the legislation.
Do you want to take that as clerical?
Yeah. It's also clerical, enacted should be italicized.
You are so right. Any other discussion on this amendment?
It's also clerical, after enact, there should be a comma.
Okay, just for future reference, you don't have speaking rights, but.
No, sorry, I was wondering.
Yeah. To grant him speaking rights.
There's a motion to grant him speaking rights. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
I didn't want to.
Now I'm speaking rights.
No, this is the 2/3 threshold.
Oh,
You have to
Jesus
vote.
Christ.
It takes 2/3. All those in favor of granting the new member of JSAP speaking rights?
Yay.
Yay.
Opposed? Okay,
Now I can say the common form.
okay. Any discussion?
There's a clerical thing in the first enacted clause. There's an extra space before infrastructure in the last sentence.
That's not germane to the amendment. We have to deal with the amendment.
Oh, are we still in the amendment?
We're still on
Oh, okay.
Um,
Sorry. Motion to vote on the amendment.
And any other discussion on this amendment?
Second.
Would you move to vote?
I just moved to vote.
Alright, is there any discussion on the motion to vote? Okay, now we're gonna vote on the motion to vote. So we're voting on if we're gonna decide to vote right now. All those in favor of voting on this amendment, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. And now we're gonna vote on the amendment. All those in favor of adopting the amendment, say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay, amendment is adopted. Thanks, Chris. Any other discussion?
There's the space issue.
Is that a motion?
No, it's clerical.
All right, cool. Any other discussion?
Motion to vote. On the bill.
There's been a motion to vote.
Second.
On passage of the legislation.
Yes.
Second.
There's a second.
By roll.
All those in,
Do it.
all those in favor of moving to vote, hold on, okay. All those in favor of doing a roll call vote, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Division.
All right, I'm gonna take
I do this
hands.
like once a year.
All those in favor of voting now and it being a roll call, please raise your hand. Okay, that's 2. Those opposed, nay.
You all are
Okay, that's
Party
5, so
poopers.
this motion fails.
party poopers.
Any other discussion on this bill? Seeing none, we're gonna vote. Okay. All those in favor of passing this legislation, adopting this legislation, say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, opinion of the chair is that the yays have it, and this bill is adopted. Awesome.
Nice.
Okay. Yay, get some work done, guys. Okay, now we're gonna move on to public comment. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak at this time? Cool, we're gonna move to good of the order. I have something first. We are gonna have a special meeting to certify the elections. That is gonna be the evening of Wednesday, November 1st. Please put it in your calendars. If you cannot be there, I really need you to see 3 hours in advance. Because we need to have quorum so we can certify the elections, so then we can have a new Senate.
What time is that?
10 evening, I'll update you.
Really helpful, but thank you.
I'll let you know with my bylaw bound notice time. I'll follow that, but I don't know at the moment. Anybody for good of the order? Senator Smith.
Sorry, a follow-up on you. Do you know where that meeting will be?
Secretary Schneider, do you know where that meeting will be?
Once I have a time, I can book a room.
Okay.
Super, no worries, no worries.
So we do need the times.
I'm gonna read mine.
Thank you.
Anybody else for good of the order? What are you?
Secretary.
Secretary Schneider.
Thank you all for, actually, no. Yeah, I'm Secretary. Thank you all for entertaining my biannual proxy. Hopefully I don't have to do it again this school year, but I like to do it every now and then. It was fun.
Okay. Anything else for good of the order? Senator Alexie?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you thanks. I think the bill was incredible and you did a really nice job. And this is my last normal Senate meeting as I will be home with my family next week. And it's been a really great time. Thank you guys. I also just want to use this time to encourage those who are going to be reelected to remember to stick to why they're running and what they're running for. I think that a lot of the times we get lost in the politics or the drama or the time commitment of Senate and forget like why you ran in the first place and what the reasons are, issues that are important to you, and that every person I've ever seen elected has so much potential to make a huge difference on this campus, and it would be really nice to see some people really get that done because I think you all can, and I wish you the best in your re-election process. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be in student government in case, and always be here if you ever need any help. But it's been really great going through these last 2 years with you guys.
Anybody else for good of the order? Okay, seeing no further
Motion to adjourn.
business, this meeting is adjourned.
Motion to object. I object.
There's been a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion to
There is a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
So any debate on the motion to adjourn? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna vote on adjourning. All those in favor of adjourning, please say yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, nay. Any of the chairs, if the yeas have it, we are adjourned.
Thank you all for entertaining that.